Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis Gianoutsos. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for having me.
Awesome. Now, whereabouts in the world are you today?
Yeah, so I'm still in the country I was born in, which is the Czech Republic in Europe, in Prague, which a lot of people love.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah, very good. My father's from Greece, and so I get to go to Europe and that, and it's a good place to be. Now, I've given our listeners a little bit of an introduction to you about your background, but we would love you to share more. Tell us more about you and what you've done and what your background is.
Yes, I believe what's important to say is that nobody in my family is an entrepreneur, so I never had somebody leading an organization in my family or around me. So until 18 years old, I was just had this employee mindset, knowing I will do corporate job later on, and that's what I follow. Until I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad, which changed my perspective to what is possible, what I want to do with my life, and that one day I want to have a business. But I still didn't have much idea. So until the age of 22, I was still reading books, getting inspiration from other people, studying at university. But then I had a big moment in my life, big realization, and I just quit my last job, which was delivering food for Uber Eats. So I believe it's important to mention that people can change rapidly if they make some serious decisions. And I went from the age of 22 being very not confident, insecure, basically not knowing what to do with my life, to 3 years later, now I own 3 businesses. Both of them did, or 2 of them did over 7 figures already. And I'm now leading over 20 employees.
Oh, that is awesome, man. Congratulations. That's really cool. Cool story as well.
Thank you.
So there you go, listeners, going from an Uber Eats to going actually making a decision. And Vash, what you actually just shared there, I think is really amazing, which is you quit your job because people can change rapidly when they make a decision. And I think a lot of leaders not making decisions, nothing worse than a leader that can't make decisions. That's really crazy, but it's nothing worse than that. But you're right. People can make decisions and they can change rapidly if they really want to, right?
Yeah, exactly. They need to have, we could call it leverage or reason why. Because for me, to give you some context, I'm delivering these food for Uber Eats. I'm not in pain. I'm still making some money, studying university. I'm young. But then I saw these people in their 30s, 40s, 50s doing the same job. And I just saw that they're unhappy. They can't provide for their families. They don't have enough time for them. And I was like, no more. And that was almost the moment when I finally was able to make a decision. No, Vash, we are going to do the scary thing, which is start a business that you've never started before. And that's when it changed for me. So I believe people need to find their reason why for the change, because without a strong why, you will give up, you will make a decision, and a week later you will go back. So yeah, strong reason why.
Yeah, and I think it's true that anywhere what we're doing in life, whether it be a role, a leadership role in a large corporate, small corporate, entrepreneur, if we don't know what our why is and it gets a little bit cold and it's a little bit cold in the morning, it's dark, because actually I'd just rather stay in bed. Then if your why is not big enough, you're going to stay there. And if it gets a little bit harder or things don't go well, don't go your way, that's when people start to be like that. And I think you're right. It's finding your way is really important here. And it's a big thing for people to understand. And I don't know about you, but do you think that people find their why straight away? In other words, they take a red pill, blue pill, green pill and go, ta-da, I know my why? Or does it take time?
I would say it takes time with yourself, which is very rare nowadays. Nowadays, a friend goes toilet, we immediately go on our phone. People have extra the day, they start sorting out emails and getting bombarded by news or YouTube videos. So I believe most people never spend time alone with themselves. And I believe the reason why is already within each one of us, but we just need to have the time to find it. Sometimes it gets triggered by external situation like it did for me, but then I spend time with myself, really going deeper. Okay, I'm ready to make a change. Why is it important to me? Why I'm not going to give up until I get to my goal? So I believe it could be combination of from something external, some trigger. Maybe we see somebody more successful and we say, "Oh, I want that." But now we need to back it up with reason why. And then the reason can be found by spending maybe Friday till Sunday alone in nature, in nice Airbnb with no distractions, no electronics. And I believe the answers are within us. We just need to discover them by spending time with ourselves.
Listeners, if you're not already taking notes and you haven't already got some big insights already, I don't know what to say to you, because the thing is, what you've just shared there is huge in the sense that spending quality time with yourself. I think that a lot of people hide behind emails and messages and I'm really busy. Come on, it's just noise. But if you don't take time out to spend time with yourself, look after yourself, think about things, think through things, then you're going to find things very hard. You know, when you talked about the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book,
Mhm.
have you read it once or have you read it many times?
So this book, I believe I read it twice when I started. There are books I read 10 times, but
Oh,
this
yeah.
was almost this first kind of impulse. And I always tell people we live in a box. And the box depends on how big it is, depends on who raised us, what experiences we were exposed to. And I'm from the Czech Republic, not many opportunities back then here. I wasn't exposed to wealth. I wasn't exposed to entrepreneurship. So my books was very small to what's possible and not. But once I started reading books, it opened the books. And that's why I believe investing in mentors or expanding our mind to different networks of people is so crucial, because you might be thinking, okay, for my business, the limit is here. But then you speak to a person who has the limit 100 times wider than you, and you will find out what's possible. So
Hmm.
yeah, it opened my eyes to new
Yeah, I think
possibilities.
so I think if you, what I'm hearing here is that the books that you're reading and the people that you've met, in other words, the mentors, people who are successful already, getting around them to get a bigger vision and understand where you could go is great. One of the questions I've got for you is, how did you actually get into leadership? Now, whether it's from the Uber Eats days straight into your own business or later on, because now you're saying you've got 20 employees, but how did you actually get into leadership?
Yeah, I believe I got into leadership because I believe leadership starts with us. And I believe I started with leadership when I read the first book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, because from that point onwards, I started building a foundations that later on I could build a great team on, great business on. So I started by working on myself first. But then as I started growing my business, what started happening, of course, I didn't want to be the one man show. I didn't want to be the guy running it. I wanted to be the guy who is just having more and more impact. And for bigger impact, you usually need more and great people. So I got there by basically starting my business. But I would say it started years before that, when I started working on waking up early, whatever I say, I do, being reliable, being able to switch myself from unresourceful states, we could say, to more resourceful state, to know how to handle my emotions and all of these things. So I believe my leadership started probably at the age of 18.
I'm in Southern California, so about a 15-hour flight away from you.
Yeah, it's about 15 hours. Yep. Beautiful. And so you, based on your bio and things like that, you've been working for a competitor of mine, as we were saying before. So I was at Hewlett Packard, you're at Dell. What was your role in Dell before?
It's interesting. When I first started at Dell, the first few months, I was just an inside salesperson.
Oh.
But before that, before I started at Dell, I was at Gateway. Remember Gateway?
Mm. Yep.
And because of that Gateway experience, I became one of Michael Dell's first executive assistants.
Oh.
Back in the 93, 94 type frame. And from that, my career just started going up. I went into the product group for a little while. I was in marketing for a little while, then back into sales, and then eventually I ran the western part of the country for Dell. And then I went to China in 2000 for a couple of years. And then from there, went down to Singapore in 2002, 2004, and covered all of South Asia and that part of the world. And so, yeah, there's a lot of Dell experience and met a lot of amazing people, and I had the opportunity to lead a lot of great teams.
Yeah, and it's great you can do that with those kind of large organizations around the world and different people and different cultures. And it's very special to be able to do that and travel the world representing a company to do it. And by the looks of your bio, you're saying, because you look very young, 30-year career in leadership and so forth.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I'm going to turn 56 this year.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been doing this. I've been managing teams and people since I was 24, 25, right? So 30 plus years. It's been a heck of a journey and a lot of fun, and met a lot of amazing people along the way.
Excellent. And today you've got an organization called 1105 Media. Tell us more about that.
So 1105 Media is a very US-centric and focused business, and 99% of our business here in the US, we're a B2B, so business to business, media and marketing technology focused company. So the best way to explain it is that our job is to connect technology buyers with technology sellers. That's what we do. That's the best way to put it. In fact, Dell and HP are clients, and software companies are our clients, and Amazon's our client. So that's what we do. We do that. We have 56 brands within the 1105 umbrella. We have 5 different business units. We have people spread out all around the country. Almost everybody is remote, and we're doing well. It's a very profitable business, and it's growing. So that's always good. So that's a little bit about the business.
Yeah. And working remote, how's your organization, 1105? I don't know how long you've had it for, but the organization, remote working, the pandemic and things like that, how's it phased? Does it not phase at all? How's it gone?
So here's the thing, interesting. And before the pandemic, about a third of the company was already remote. And when the pandemic hit, obviously everybody went remote. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 offices. And now we're down to 1.5 offices. And by Q2 of next year, we'll be down to 1 office. And by the end of next year, that one big office we have will probably be cut in half. So look, all I can tell you is that my team loves it. It works very well for my team. I'm a big advocate of it. In fact, I talk about it a lot that this is just the future, the way the work is going to go. And I believe we built a really strong culture, and we don't do any of this nonsense that other companies do in terms of tracking people's keystrokes or making you turn on the camera while you're working or anything nonsense. We have a lot of transparency and trust in the business here, and it's proven itself by the fact that on the last 11 months, we've only had one person quit in the last 11 months at the company. And so we believe we do a really good job of really focusing on the employee and employee experience, and really making our employees the most important customer that we have is our employees. So that's what we focus on, and they take care of the external customer.
That's excellent. I really like the way you put that, as that employee experience and the most important customer. Do you think then, I'm not going to actually, because there's questions I've got for you, I'm going to ask towards the last question now, actually, because you brought it up about employees. Their expectation of leaders today, has that changed at all?
My organization demographic runs a little bit older than most, but I will tell you, based on many of my other, I'm a member of this group called YPO and other groups like that. And so I've been around it, and I wrote a book about this actually called Chase Greatness. And I'll tell you, the research shows that the next 2 years, the majority of the workforce is going to be Gen Z and millennial. And for the first time, women will have a slight majority in the workplace. So to answer your question, yeah, leadership has to change. It absolutely does. And it started with myself. I believe I needed to change, and I changed a lot during COVID. We started changing right before COVID, but COVID accelerated things. We became a very decentralized organization. We pushed all decision-making down into the teams, to the different business units. So corporate is no longer a bottleneck. And that was a great thing to do. So we've been doing that now for 4+ years, and it's been a home run.
I understand that you're the CEO and the co-founder of Clockwork. Now, tell us a little bit more about that organization.
Sure. Clockwork is an experience design and technology consultancy. We're based in Minneapolis. We've got clients all over the globe. We have a workforce all over the country, all over the US. And we've been around for about 21 years. We solve a lot of big gnarly problems in regulated industries. So we focus in on healthcare, insurance, manufacturing, and financial services a great deal.
And I understand from your bio that you're actually an outspoken advocate for making work better. Tell us more about that.
Work, I think, is broken, and we're acknowledging that now more than ever because of the pandemic and what it did to us. I think the whole globe is in an existential crisis. We're asking ourselves if the work that we're doing is the work that we want to do, if our purpose is really found in the context of this work, if we're doing something meaningful. And I actually often find myself trying to talk to audiences about how they can show up to create the meaning, to connect to their purpose, to be accountable. And quite frankly, we're not living in the same era that we were when, say, my parents were growing up. You don't have to work in a job for 30 years. Also, many of us have pursued either training or education that puts us in the same, we're peers with leaders inside of organizations. And so we aren't trapped. We're not in prison. Work isn't a prison sentence. We have power, and we can either use it to make work better or use it to find ourselves different opportunities where we can actually make work better.
Yeah, it's fascinating how things have changed since, as you said, our parents, when they were working, they retired after 30 years, get a gold watch and a dead chook as a retirement gift and see you later. And so there was what they used to get. But yeah, you're right. It's different now. And people who are struggling now, if they're listening to this episode and they're struggling around why they're getting up to go to work, or it's too hard to get to work, that purpose is missing, what do you reckon they should do?
That's a symptom of late stage capitalism. So the entire system has to be addressed, right? But people on their own are saying, what the heck can I do about that? And what can I do about myself? And I think, first of all, ensure that the place where you are choosing to devote the majority of your time and talent, make sure that their values align with yours. Because if you don't feel like you're doing something that matters, you'll never get the energy you need to get up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always encouraging organizations to make sure that their values aren't aspirational or marketing speak. And I encourage individuals to, it's interesting, but I think we spend a lot of time writing marketing plans, sales plans, business plans, but individuals don't take a lot of time to articulate absolutely how they want to spend their time, where they see themselves creating and adding the most value, where they see themselves being most challenged. So I think first and foremost, there's an opportunity for us right now in this moment in time to go, what is the most meaningful thing for me to do in spending my energy for however much time I have left in my career? And really articulating, what do I want to do? Where do I want to do it? How do I want to show up? What kind of organization really resonates with me? What kind of values am I looking to connect with inside of that organization? And then don't settle for less. Don't settle. We aren't living in an era where we have to anymore. Even unemployment is at an all-time low in the United States right now. We're still talking about the economy being crazy, but unemployment is at an all-time low, and that might scare people. But talent, good, solid talent that can devote really thoughtful, considered, committed energy is something that employers fight for. So I think it's always going to be an employee's market if they know how to market themselves and if they're purposeful about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing that. I've also seen that you've got a book out there, your latest book, because I think you've got a couple. The latest one is Work Like a Boss, Kicking the Pants Guide to Finding and Using Your Power at Work. And it's along the lines that you've just been sharing, I presume. Is there anything else you want to add about the book?
I talked about parents earlier and working in a place for 30 years and collecting a paycheck and moving on. I think, something about that era of work created a situation where we have these ideals entrenched in our DNA that aren't necessarily true anymore. I had a conversation just this morning with a colleague, and one of the things I said to her was, my goal is to ensure that we are always co-creating at Clockwork. It's not about leadership mandating things. We are co-creating. And I think that humans need to approach work with a sense of agency and power and a willingness to take risks. I talk a lot about this idea of entrepreneurship. Your podcast is about leadership. And when I thought about what I was going to speak to in this conversation, one of the points that I make with everybody is leadership is not delineated by a line on the org chart anymore. I think the expectation is that we need leaders throughout organizations. We need people to be able to take initiative, make decisions, take risks, not be so siloed and focused on a single thing that they aren't valuable anyplace else. People who are constantly evolving, who want to be challenged, I think that leadership looks different because we meet it in so many different areas inside of companies.
I think it's awesome what you're sharing there. Question I've got for you, though, is how did you get into leadership?
I always tell people that leaders aren't people that say, follow me, darn it. They're people who other people feel compelled to follow. And I think early in my career, I wasn't somebody who approached every opportunity as if I will do this and then you will owe me. I approached opportunities as a chance for me to demonstrate my skills, my way of thinking, my strategic capacity. And so honestly, I got into leadership because one of the companies that I was working for prior to this work had partnered with a consulting firm to help ready themselves for acquisition. And when they did that, the entrepreneurs who had founded the place realized that they were probably not the right folks to lead going forward as they started to really operationalize the best aspects of their work. And they asked the consultants, should we post a job for a new president? Should we go looking to recruit that? And he said to them, your president, your boss, your leader is right under your nose. And it's this person who has learned every aspect of the business, worked in every aspect of the business, provided added value in every aspect of the business, and is showing up as a leader already. And that was a real opportunity for me. I recognized that they decided they needed a boss and they realized their boss was right there. And so I give them kudos to two men who saw something in me that maybe at the time I didn't see in myself, but also were willing to really value the work and the contributions that I had made to such a degree that they were willing to give me an opportunity to lead.
Brilliant. And what was it like for them to step aside to allow you to be involved in that transition? What was that like?
I think that it was hard at first. It was hard for me to take the wheel as much as it was hard for them to let go of it, because that was always who they had been. And I'd been trained to be subordinate, right? And so in my role as a subordinate, as an employee of these two people, it was easy for me to lead everybody else. But when it came time for me to also include them in that group, that was a tough challenge. And yet, I go back to the whole co-creation thing. When we opened ourselves up to the power of our energy combined, it became really exciting to consider what we might do if we all focused on our highest and best use.
Yeah, and I think even the word that sort of popped into my head as well when you talked about that was your intent. For all of you, all three of you, was the intent of what we're wanting to do here and working together. And I think that's special, very special. I see a lot of organizations do go to market. We've got to go and find that new CEO, president, and so forth. And there are some really good bench strength talent sitting in the organization. And I think that consultant was really smart in actually seeing the gems within the organization and bringing that out. And I think that's smart, very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.